Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the public meeting of the Richmond Board of Education. As we begin, the Richmond Board of Education acknowledges and thanks the First Peoples of the Hunkaminam language group on whose traditional and unceded territories we teach, learn, and live. Tonight, we are going to move straight to our announcements on our agenda, and I believe trustees do have a couple of announcements to begin with. Trustee Larson.
Thank you. Since 2014, the Richmond School District and City of Richmond have collaborated on the Respectful City Committee to promote February as Erase Bullying Month and February 24th as Pink Day. Our committee's vision is through collaboration, education, and celebration, we create opportunities for all citizens to feel safe, connected, and empowered to work, learn, and play in Richmond. Information has been shared with schools, which provides a history of Pink Shirt Day and links to some informative online resources. Schools, work sites, and community commonplaces will be using this information and resources to promote Erase Bullying Month and Pink Day.
Thank you very much, Trustee Larson. And
you're welcome.
I realized that the second announcement was to be read by Trustee Goldstein, and he may be having trouble connecting. So I'm just going to see if I can find that announcement. It's regarding the budget. Would also just like to mention, as we're looking for that announcement, that of course it is also Education Week this week, and we will be hearing more about that later in the meeting.
Let me know if you need that, Sandra.
Thank you. Sure, please. That would probably be fastest. Oh, I think I've got it here. Okay, the board's annual budgeting process is, of course, now well underway. Briefs regarding the 2021-2022 annual budget will be accepted without prior notice at the March 31st, 2021 regular meeting of the board, as well as at the board's April 28th regular meeting. Please note that budget updates will be made available on the budget page on the school district's website. And at the April 28th board meeting, stakeholders will be invited to present during the budget committee of the whole. All budget feedback will be considered by the board as part of the budget process, which is anticipated to be completed by June. And I'm going to turn things over to our Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Ueno, for a final announcement about some meeting protocols and guidance for tonight.
Thank you, Chairperson. For the public attendees joining the meeting this evening, you will be able to listen to the meeting, but not speak or use chat function during the meeting. An audio-video recording of the meeting will be made available for viewing after this meeting. For stakeholder panelists, please ensure that your video and audio are turned off and muted to eliminate background noise unless you're presenting or during question periods. There will be 2 question periods, at which time questions sent to the board meeting email account will be read out. For public attendees who have not already submitted questions, there is still an opportunity to submit questions via our board meetings at sd38.bc.ca email account, or you can post a question during the meeting using the Q&A feature in Zoom. For stakeholder panelists, you can turn your audio video on to indicate you have a question during the question period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ueno. And can I ask also if there are any materials not included in the packages available to the public?
Thank you, Chairperson. All materials have been made available.
Thank you. We'll move to item 2, adoption of our agenda. Can I have a mover for that? Trustee Larson, second, Trustee Sargent, Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Great, thank you. Our agenda is adopted. We do not have any presentations or special recognitions this evening, nor do we have any briefs that have been submitted. And so we come to our first question period, of which there are two at our regular meetings. I'll just check in with those who've been monitoring the questions to see if there are any. And I do see Ms. Liz Baverstock, you've turned your camera on, so I'm going to guess you have a question. If so, please go ahead.
Good evening, Liz Baverstock, President of the Richmond Teachers Association. I'm going to take advantage of the questions twice tonight. No brief tonight, and I appreciate that March 31st is the date, so that allows us some time to continue to prepare our budget brief. But I am asking a question that is related to finance and legal, and specifically and the budget, which I know is going to be spoken to tonight, and just in regards to advocacy for funding, and really to start that addressing what we see as a structural shortfall, that we're aware of, that there is a structural shortfall, and really in order to make sure that we're all working together to ensure 2021, 2022 is welcoming to everybody who returns in September. That will include learners who are in schools now, who have not been in school, and in school in a building, perhaps for more than a year. And of course, to people who are new to the community or new to school in terms of welcoming them to kindergarten. So what I want to ensure is that we're doing everything we can to advocate for funding to make sure that we have a continued focus on health and safety rather than concerns about potential budget cuts, layoffs, because we do know that there are continued pressures in terms of enrollment and the impacts of the pandemic. And we do feel that there is a need for continued federal and provincial support to start what we hope is us moving out of a pandemic. I don't think we're all convinced that we will be out of a pandemic, but that we are continuing that movement out of a pandemic. So my question is about advocacy. What are the board's plans? What are you currently engaged in?
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Baverstock. And we have, the board did receive a brief in January from Richmond Teachers Association with some suggestions for advocacy, and the board is considering those suggestions. I wonder if trustees have any other comments about that? Otherwise, we will endeavor to get back to you with an answer to that question when our plans are more solidified. Trustee Sargent.
Sorry, thank you. I don't know if it's helpful, but our association is working hard, and we're actually producing a document that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks in regards to September and recovery and moving forward. And the document notes many things that are going to be needed. And so we'll be, our president reflected on that at Provincial Council, and that document will be coming out. And I know as SD38 obviously is part of BCSTA, we will be working hard using that document, I'm sure. So that's just on the provincial front. It also came up at the Metro branch. And so lots of people, lots of discussions in other places that we belong to as well.
Thank you, Trustee Sargent. Trustee Tablatny.
Yes, well, on that same note, we do have our annual general meeting in April as well. And, you know, at that point, there are many motions put forward by boards to form the advocacy through BCSTA. And so I'm sure there will be plenty of advocacy regarding funding, as there usually is, but probably more so, with the pandemic. So our board can submit motions to BCSTA, and we can also do our own advocacy as well. So I think, we're planning to look at the brief and letter that was brought forward from RTA not that long ago. So thank you. That's it from me.
Thank you, Trustee Tablotny. I know one of the things that the board has brought up with our Richmond elected officials in a meeting recently was around mental health. It's a priority for our government, and it's obviously a priority for us, especially given the toll that this year will have taken, especially for students. And so one of the pieces we have been highlighting is the need for support and funding for mental health and increased mental health supports. Okay, so thank you very much. We'll look forward to your question at the next question period. Thank you. I'm going to check to see if we have other questions that have come in. Okay, I'm seeing none.
Chairperson, sorry. Yeah, no, we're not aware of any questions at this point yet for this particular question period, Chairperson. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move along in our agenda. So item 4 is a report from our executive team, and I'll turn things over to back to you, Superintendent Robinson.
Thank you, Chairperson. So a couple of things I'd like to report on tonight. First of all, just a brief update regarding COVID exposures in schools in the Richmond School District. And then I'd like to talk about some highlights relating to Education Week this week. So starting with COVID cases in schools. So the number of possible exposures in Richmond School District schools has remained low compared to before Christmas, when we peaked at approximately 15 exposures in 1 week. Last month, I reported that we had approximately between 1 or 2 exposures per week. These are exposures, not transmissions. For February, the number of cases has stayed low. We've had either 2, 3, or 4, and in this week we have 1 case per week, which is certainly good news. It's important to note that we still do not have a documented case of transmission in our schools, and I want to once again reach out and thank our parent community, our students, our staff for the work that they're doing to adhere to the health and safety guidelines, because I think it is absolutely making a difference in the lack of transmission in our schools. So I want to give everybody a huge thank you for that. We have continued to ask schools to focus on encouraging the use of masks. Most recently, we distributed posters to all schools with an encouragement message. We are not at this time able to expect mask use at the elementary level for students, but we are certainly strongly encouraging students to wear masks. And we are seeing very high levels of participation in that in our schools. So I'm going to move on to the PowerPoint that reflects what's happening this week relating to our Education Week. And if I can just get the PowerPoint set up, that would be great. Thank you. So this month, I'm going to highlight stories that are being featured as a part of Education Week. This is an opportunity for our district to really openly and publicly share the many remarkable things that are happening in Richmond schools. Each day of the week, the district is highlighting different aspects of school and classroom learning with a just different connection to the curriculum through the lens of our strategic plan. So I encourage everyone listening today to visit our school district website, that's at sd38.bc.ca, and to spend some time enjoying the various examples of work that have been provided by students and staff around the school district. So starting with today, Monday, February 22nd, the district highlighted learning through inquiry. And what this means is it's really a mindset that students use to build their understanding through an active and open-minded exploration of a question or a problem or an issue. So a great example of this would be students' unique recent inquiry into unique and special plants. After reading A Day with Yaya by Nicola Campbell, students made connection between the indigenous plants important to their identity, their culture, and their family. Students reflected on their special plant, the created art of their plant, and they wrote a short speech detailing their connections to their plant. And then students shared their work and learned about the plants that were most important to them and their classmates. So the picture that's seen here was described by the student. My plant is a kumquat tree. The kumquat tree is important to me because every Chinese New Year, my grandma and grandpa put up a kumquat tree. Chinese New Year is important to me because I'm Chinese and I love spending time with my cousins, my grandma, and my grandpa. So for Tuesday, February 23rd, the district highlighted global citizenship and sustainability, which focuses on interacting with others in the natural world in respectful and caring ways. Students, with the support and guidance of their teachers, develop awareness and take responsibility for their social, physical, and natural environments by working independently and collaboratively for the benefit of others, their communities, and of course of the environment. So a great example of this is our students' use of their school garden to feed local families. Students and parents, with the support of school staff and the Richmond Food Security Society, recently grew over 250 pounds of food in their school garden. Sorry, not recently, that was this summer, to feed families in need. Throughout the school year, classes participated in growing and maintaining the school garden by planting, weeding, watering, and harvesting a wide variety of produce. In addition to helping in the garden, students learned about a variety of topics, such as identifying plants, composting, earthworms, mason bees, and the plant life cycle. Over the summer months and for part of the fall, the bounty from the school garden was then harvested and delivered to the Terra Nova Sharing Farm each week, where meals were prepared by professional chefs for families in need. So just a wonderful example of our students learning and contributing to our community. So today, Wednesday, February 24th, the district is highlighting equitable and inclusive learning communities. Our district is extremely proud to support inclusive learning environments where all students are valued members of our school community. We strive for students to feel good about who they are, to be connected to each other and their teachers and their families, and to be challenged and supported in their learning. As a district, we continually strive for an environment where all students can achieve their full potential. And a really great example of this is Pink Shirt Day. Pink Shirt Day today is an opportunity for students and staff to come together by wearing pink shirts to show that they are against bullying. Schools across the district are taking the opportunity to take a firm stand against bullying and to share messages of encouragement and positivity for students. So a few examples happening in our schools around the district are students writing sincere messages of positivity and acceptance to be posted around their schools, designing and producing hundreds of Pink Day buttons for distribution, creating pink door hangers for all spaces for their schools, writing messages on pink mask cutouts to be placed on a kindness wall, working with community partners to design pink shirts, and baking Pink Day desserts. February has been Black History Month in Canada. And throughout the month of February, students have been learning more about Black Canadians and their current and past contributions to Canada. A few examples from our schools include learning about Harry Jerome's Olympic career and the challenges that he overcame. Vocal jazz students are learning and celebrating and singing the music of Black jazz vocalists. We have book displays in our Learning Commons, District Learning Commons, and a book a day highlighted by our coordinator for the District Resource Center. They're learning about Canadian Viola Desmond and her human rights advocacy. And we have conversations happening about anti-racism and equity in classroom discussions. So we're obviously really pleased to see such a broad set of discussions and experiences happening across the district. And what we're hearing is our students are engaging this with great passion and excitement. So very, very grateful to the teaching staff out there who are providing these amazing opportunities. So for tomorrow, Thursday, the 25th of February, we will be highlighting Indigenous perspectives. In classrooms, Richmond teachers use resources and the First Peoples principles of learning to guide their teaching. These principles embody the process of deep learning and also help students to understand and respect not only Indigenous culture, but also by comparison, their own cultural heritage. A great example of this was the Indigenous Fine Arts exhibit that was created recently. Teachers and students came together to create a showcase of contemporary First Nations music, visual arts, film, dance, and poetry. And each artist or collaboration and a sample of their work was displayed on mini posters. Students explored the following questions as they engaged with their work. What do you think is the main idea or message of this work? How does the work make you feel? What do you need to know more about to better understand the work? And then at the conclusion of the activity, the students were asked to discuss which creation had the greatest impact on them. So through this project, students were able to explore Indigenous fine arts and contemporary traditional styles, celebrate diversity, learn more about First Peoples cultures, and to engage in themes and issues prevalent in Indigenous art. So again, just amazing work happening with our teaching staff and students. I'll wrap up with Friday, which is February the 26th. The district will be highlighting learning through the arts. So arts education is obviously a critical part of our learners' development. Art is an important part of our culture and a way to express identity and belonging. It helps learners think more critically about their surroundings when they create and express themselves with visual art, with music, drama, and dance. So a really great example of this is the Cranes of Hope project that students worked on recently. During an exploration of symbolism, students learned about the crane as a symbol of hope in Japanese culture. The legend holds that if one folds 1,000 cranes, one will be granted a wish. So as a class, students learned about the story of Sadako Sasaki, a young Japanese girl who strived to fold 1,000 cranes after she developed leukemia following the bombing of Hiroshima. Her story has captured the hearts and the imaginations of millions around the world. So together as a class, students folded 448 cranes and strung them together to spell out the word l'espoir, which means hope in French. Currently, students continue to fold cranes such as that they can reach their goal of 1,000 cranes and wish their wish. They hope that COVID-19 will disappear. So again, amazing things happening in our classrooms around the district during Education Week, and we absolutely encourage folks to visit our district website to hear more and read more about these things. Chairperson, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Robinson. It is just so great to be able to not only acknowledge the different kinds of learning that are happening in our district right now, not just well, just in so many areas, and Education Week being online this year, that I think it's more widely available for people to be able to go on and see the incredible kinds of learning that's happening. The partnerships we have with the community, like Richmond Food Security and Sharing Farm, that really expand the opportunities our students have as well. So thank you very much. I'm not seeing, oh, I see a comment. So Trustee Sargent.
Well, thank you very much. And I know you can't report on everything, Superintendent, but I just wanted to say Monday's junior board meeting, I wanted to note it publicly that it was an outstanding event. And even though it was virtual, we had breakout rooms. It was centered around 4 questions. Our staff did an amazing job, but mostly the students, they actually carried the whole meeting. We broke into breakout rooms. We had deep discussions and, you know, how we could make things better for them. And it was centered around 4 questions. And it was massively impactful to me. And I think one of the things was also impactful for me is that I really missed being with the kids. And it was really important to be with them, even virtually. And I got their energy, and it was just so reaffirming why we do what we do. So a humongous thank you to the students and to our staff, and just it was massively impactful for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Sargent. Yes, it was a wonderful way to begin Education Week, meeting with students and having some really honest conversations about their experiences this past year, what they're hopeful for going forward, take some of their suggestions, and as we look forward to figuring out how we can increase student voice is one of our goals with the strategic plan throughout the district and all our decision making. Great, thank you. So we're going to move to the next item on our agenda, approval of minutes. There are minutes in the agenda package of the regular meeting of the board held Wednesday, January 27th for approval. I'll look for a mover for that. Trustee Sargent, seconded Trustee Toblotny. Any discussion on the minutes? Then I will call the question. All in favor? Adopting? Any opposed? Great, thank you. Those minutes are adopted. There's also a record of an in-camera meeting of the board held Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. Our first item under business arising is a report from Assistant Superintendent Brodigan on the anti-racism working group, the board's working group. And there's a memorandum attached, and I'm going to see Assistant Superintendent Brodigan, would you like to speak to your memo?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Good evening, everyone. So I'll just give some highlights from that memo that appears on page, starts on page 14 of the package. So the Diversity and Anti-Racism Working Group was formed as a result of the board's motion on June the 10th to convene a working group to fulfill a very clear mandate around consulting with student, staff, and stakeholders about their experiences with racism in the school district, as well as to review what is happening with respect to education of our students around various forms of racism, and a review of policy and practices regarding racism, and to identify the gaps that may exist between education and practices, hiring, policy, professional development, and school and district culture, and make recommendations to the board. This working group is comprised of stakeholders, including trustees, QP, RASA, RDPA, RMAPs, RTA, and executive staff. And we have been meeting regularly since November the 5th. We've had many rich conversations and discussions around elevating the profile of anti-racist education and how to become an anti-racist school district, and also how to go about effectively consulting and reviewing according to what is set out for us in the mandate for this working group. We've also discussed the need for teaching and learning about racism and anti-racism for all of our stakeholders, and how to effectively identify the gaps. Also really important is to broaden the scope of teaching and learning so that we can embed anti-racist practices and learning about anti-racism so that change is positive, enduring, and sustainable. And in order to fulfill this mandate and provide an objective analysis, the Diversity and Anti-Racism Working Group is currently seeking the services of a consulting company to support us in the form of an audit with the consultation and review aspects of our mandate, and to help provide an identification of the gaps that exist and that face our community and how we might go about addressing them. So currently, the working group is reviewing proposals from several local consulting companies, and we are evaluating those proposals for a company that will work collaboratively with the school district to help provide clear and accountable audit process, and to provide specific and actionable recommendations, and also how to provide suggestions on how we sustain this work going forward. It's expected that we will be making a recommendation very soon about who we would like to work with so that that audit can get underway as soon as possible. Also, there are several initiatives that have been taking place that fall outside of the mandate of the working group, but align with anti-racism work overall that I highlighted in the memorandum. And some of those things include on March the 1st, we are expecting to launch an anti-racism resources hub on our internal portal, and that will provide resources for staff who would like to learn more about anti-racism and anti-racist teaching practices, to have curated materials that are print, online, audio and video resources to learn about and to use for teaching as well. And we're expecting that hub will grow as the need and interest grows in the district. We're also looking at providing resources on our public website as well that families can engage with and that students can engage with. Also, throughout Black History Month, schools have been promoting the work that they have been doing on their own school websites, but also on their social media platforms such as Twitter, to help the conversation be alive and for schools to share their work with each other. And we expect that that will continue as we delve more into work that is focused on anti-racism. Also, a BC Black History course outline is currently under review with our learning services staff and interested secondary teachers to review the potential of offering a course about BC Black history in the near future. And then, as you've heard before, we have anti-racism book bundles in our elementary and secondary school libraries that were put in place in the fall, and diversity audits underway in our secondary school libraries to take a close look at whether the library collections reflect the community, and then to take action around that. And we have book clubs underway for our managers, vice principals, principals, and now teachers that would like to engage with books that on anti-racism themes, so that they can learn more about this important topic, and have more resources in order to use in their work and in teaching as well. I also want to extend my appreciation and thanks to all the members of the working group. We've been meeting about every 2 weeks since November, and it's been a big commitment. And I really want to thank everyone for their time and dedication to this work, and also to the staff members in learning services who've been curating and putting resources together behind the scenes for the district as a whole. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Just looking for hands. Yes, Trustee Larson.
Thank you very much. I have been following on Twitter, and I am amazed by the richness of the stories and the drawings and it's amazing from both elementary and secondary. It's really grown, and it's more, yeah, it's incredible. So thank you.
Thanks, Heather. We're really hoping to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you for your report. The working group really is a significant step forward for the district in terms of really mobilizing our work to become an anti-racist district. I really take to heart what you said about creating change that's positive, enduring, and sustainable. Really important that we pay attention to all of those things. And it's a really committed group, I understand, that has been meeting every 2 weeks, which is quite a lot. Look forward to the audit, which we know is coming, and to the recommendations that'll be coming out of that. And I would echo your thanks to all our staff across the district who have been helping to move us forward in our both awareness and education and around anti-racism, both for students and also for staff and all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson.
We're going to move to our next item, which is update from our Executive Director of Facilities Services on the Long Range Facilities Plan. Mr. Frank Geyer, there you are. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairperson Nixon. So what I wanted to do tonight was just to provide an update to trustees as well as to our audience tuning in tonight as to what our facilities planning staff have been working on in the past while pertaining to our long range facilities plan. So planning staff are continue to work on a number of strategic recommendations contained in the LRFP. The one that we've been spending a lot of time on recently, it has to do with childcare. And I know that there's been a lot of talk from a provincial level about provision of childcare facilities within schools and optimizing spaces within schools for childcare. And there have been a number of initiatives that have been brought up, or have been created by government. One that we're currently under construction is the childcare facility at Tomset Elementary. That's part of our seismic upgrade that's going on, and that's funded out of the Childcare BC Spaces Fund. and that's for major capital. But the one that we're currently putting a lot of effort into is the Rapid Childcare Renovations Fund, which is an application that can be made by private groups as well as by public entities for up to $100,000 for the conversion of space into a preschool facility. A preschool meaning anything from daycare to preschool, but it's basically for up to 5-year-olds for daycare purposes. And so what we're doing is that we've looked at a number of our sites, and the key is that we have to have this space up and running by the end of August. And so, and our application has to be in by the middle of March. So we looked through a number of locations where this could work, talked to principals, and we've come down to one facility at this time. That's at Robert J. Tate Elementary, where we're going to be looking at applying for renovations to a classroom to make it into a full-time daycare operation, as well as improvements to an outside play area that's currently underutilized, to provide play space that could be used not only by the child care providers and the children under their care, but also could be used by the community after hours. So we are putting that application in, and we currently have a request for expressions of interest out to potential child care providers to operate in that new space. The second thing that staff are working on diligently is preparing for our 2022-2023 5-year capital plan. So this is due every year by the end of June to the Ministry of Education, where we list off all of our major capital projects that we're seeking funding for upcoming years. Projects include seismic upgrades and additions, major capital maintenance, carbon neutral capital initiatives, playground replacements, and bus replacements. So we are putting together the list. So we had a list that we submitted last year. We are still awaiting word from the ministry, which we are expecting probably in April, as to which projects have been supported in last year's capital plan. But we're starting work now on next year's plan already, looking to carry forward any projects that won't be that we don't get supported, and also any new projects that come up through the course of the year that we deem as important. But again, it has to align with the long range facilities plan and has to align with our new board strategic plan. The third area that we've been focusing on is city center area elementary planning. So the LRFP back in June 2019 that the board adopted identified the need for a new elementary school in the city center area no sooner than 2033. And the site that we looked at, that we named within the LRFP, was the Lansdowne Village area, which is currently occupied by the Lansdowne Park Shopping Center. In order to accommodate increased enrollment in the city center area up to 2033, and in accordance with the LRFP, because in the LRFP we actually laid out a strategy for how we're going to deal with increased enrollment in the city center area. And most recently in capital planning instructions from the ministry, we've been advised that we need to maximize the utility of our existing school sites. So that means to look at expanding where as far as we can within reason on a school site to increase capacity before looking at acquiring new school sites. In accordance with the two documents, we have plans to construct a number of additions to area schools such as Brighouse, Tomset, Tolmie, and Cook. And then the next step would be further down the road looking at a potential new elementary school on a site that we already own, which is at Dover Park. And then once we get to 2033, that's when we'd be looking at a new school site in the Lansdowne Village area. Our most recent enrollment projections haven't changed since the LRFP, so therefore the timeline hasn't changed when it comes to when we see additional seats coming out. There's been a little bit of movement due to the fact that COVID has affected our enrollment numbers and our projections, but we believe that our timeline is still more or less intact. With respect to the Lansdowne Park site, we have planning staff within the district. We've maintained regular communications with city planners and with the developer of Lansdowne Park for the past 3 years, for at least the past 3 years, regarding possible locations and concepts for a new school site within that development. And we've been corresponding even up to this month on that. The official community plan and city center area plan amendments and the proposed master land use plan by the City of Richmond planning staff indicate there's a number of locations within the Lansdowne Village development where we could look at a school site. There's actually 4, of which 3 of them are the ones that planning staff with the school district would be the most interested in. And we've been and be advised as part of the master land use plan and OCP and CCAP amendments that there is going to be an incremental development of that site, a redevelopment of that site. So there's a number of phases which will give which are going to be subject to future rezoning and development permit applications as well as review, giving the school district a number of opportunities to negotiate and possibly secure a site for a school in the future. So it doesn't have to happen now. There's going to be a number of opportunities within the next 15 to 20 years, which is what the build out plan is looking like for the Lansdowne site. So the redevelopment will be taking place over that period. So we'll have a number of opportunities to negotiate and land on a site if that's the location that is still applicable. And then from there, seek necessary capital funding from the province to actually build a school on that site. The optimal school site there's the 3 sites that we've identified as being the most preferential are adjacent to an event area that the city has identified. So it'd be like a grassed field area, but unfortunately, it's right within the footprint of the existing shopping mall. So we'd be at pretty much the mercy of the developer when it comes to demolishing the mall for us to then move in. So it all aligns within the next 20 to 25 year period. So things are for the next 15 to 20 years, I should say. So we're actually, everything's aligning nicely with our plans. Final thing that we're working on is an update to our 2019 Long Range Facilities Plan. Back when we had the plan adopted, planning staff advised the board that we would be doing a comprehensive update of the plan every 2 years with the board to review and approve any proposed changes. So what planning staff have been working on for the past few months are a number of amendments, including basically updating our numbers to reflect what our current enrollment projections and other data are, including where we've now opened up schools such as Cook, where we've done an expansion to it, is how does that impact our capacity and enrollment and our as well as our capital planning. Proposed amendments in response to approvals, decisions, and other changes since the time the board approved the plan. And that includes items such as how we did the number of catchment area boundary changes a little over a year ago, and basically incorporating that in the plan. Also looking at other possible strategic recommendations in alignment with the board's strategic plan, and amendments to the appendices. And the appendices make up a good portion of the actual document, and that's basically data, plans, and that. So it's basically looking back on what we've completed, updating the plan, and then what do we need to do moving forward for the next 15 years. And Madam Chair, that is my report. And if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guyer. Trustee Sargent.
Thank you, Mr. Guyer, and all your staff for all the hard working you're doing and getting facilities just perfect for the students in our district. I just wanted to make a quick comment on the city center area elementary and the planning that's happening. appreciate all the tremendous work that our staff is doing along with city staff. And just we've been advocating for that some site in city center to have a school, a catchment school where kids that are living in city center will be able to go to. So I think it's incredible that perhaps a developer can perhaps see that it would be wonderful to have a school in that development and to service the students that will be living there. So again, thank you for a documented info on that and our continued work to make sure that we can have a city center school. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, I think it's, as always, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Thank you for the comprehensive report. I think it's great that childcare is still such a need. It's great that we're able to take advantage of some of these special funding right now and actually have an application in for some childcare at Tate. I know in conversations and reports we've seen from City Hall that before and after school childcare is still a high need in some areas. It would be nice if we could see some special funding that we could take advantage of and programs to support some expansion of those of that service as well. And thank you as well to you and your team for working on these sort of really long range plans, especially around the expansion of the city center enrollment that we're anticipating, and really long term around the need for additional schools. And appreciate that city has also been supportive in working with our team and hopefully aligning the time frame for that development and the opportunity for a new school there with our timelines for needing a school. So we'll look forward to future updates. Thank you very much. Okay, moving along, we do not have any items under new business, and so we are at our second question time to take questions from those attending tonight. Ms. Baverstock, welcome again. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. It's a very odd way to feel like you're re-entering a meeting. It's like I'm back on screen, but I've been listening. So I do have two areas where I'm going to ask questions, and they are with the business arising. So I'm going to start with the LRFP. My questions are in terms of where do we feel we're going to be moving forward in terms of timelines? Because, you know, we continue to hear enrollment challenges that are happening in our secondary schools. And in particular, some of our secondary schools where, for instance, Canby, they've got a larger grade 12 class that's will be graduating this year, and congratulations to them. And then a smaller grade 8 class that will be coming in, which adds to more of the pressures in terms of enrollment on Canby, which, as you know, because we've talked about numerous times, that causes challenges in terms of the ability to offer a variety of programs and courses. And it increases teacher workload as they, you know, feel immense pressure to offer courses in a variety of different ways, such as split courses, because they're passionate about what they teach. And they want to make sure that they can support the learning journey that the students have started. So I'm asking, you know, where do we see the timelines on the LRFP and some of the challenges that the district is facing?
Thank you. I wonder if staff would like to comment, Mr. Geyer?
I can take a stab at it. When we went through the first phase of catchment area boundary reviews, there were a couple that were deferred. One of them, and the two of them really affect the elementary, or sorry, the secondary schools that have the greatest challenge when it comes to capacity utilization. So what we're going to be doing is when we come forward with the updated version of the long-range facilities plan, we will have new timelines identified for that review, because we were hoping to get that done as part of a phase 1. But as we know, COVID came along and kind of put a wrinkle into best laid plans. So we will be coming up with proposed new timelines we'll be bringing to the board when we have our updated plan in June.
Thank you, Mr. Guy.
Thank you. And I do have a second question that will relate to the diversity and anti-racism working group. But I do echo what trustees have said in terms about the needs at City Center, and that all of us want to make sure that those needs in City Center are addressed earlier rather than later, because I think the last thing anybody wants to see is us getting into a place where we have to deal with lotteries or saying to students that we don't have space in this catchment school, and you can't even attend this catchment school with your siblings. So I think that pressure, I know, has been on the board for years in their advocacy, and we share that. So my second question is in regards to the diversity and anti-racism working group. And the RTA, as you know, because we have sent a recent letter, does strongly support the audit and engaging in external consulting companies to complete this audit. What we're wondering is about timelines, and we ask about the timelines because as we come to this time of the year, and as I've already alluded to, we're preparing a budget brief. Asks in terms of from the Richmond Teachers Association that are really strategic and targeted towards the strategic plan, because we do see a number of the priorities for inspired learners and equity inclusion that will need some perhaps one-time funding in order to carry things through, such as for the SOGI advisory working group, the diversity and anti-racism working group, the Indigenous Equity and Action Plan, and all of these are going to need some additional support. So we're wondering when are the consulting services perhaps going to be engaged such that there will be some recommendations so that the RTA can provide further feedback in terms of budget. And before I leave that question with you, once again, as was already mentioned, lots of thanks to all the RTA members and stakeholder groups who are involved in all of these various different working groups. I know the passion that exists at those tables and the immense amount of work that everybody is putting into this, and it is very much appreciated by the RTA. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baverstock. And regarding timeline for the work of the anti-racism working group, I'm wondering if staff person would like to comment. Is this Superintendent Brodigan?
Sure, thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, so as I said, we are hoping to begin as soon as possible. Ideally, that would be soon after spring break. An audit, we are really wanting to be mindful of doing a thorough job, which means that it is not necessarily a quick process. It will take a few months to complete and analyze, but we are hoping to engage as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And obviously, we anticipate seeing some needs expressed by both the board and the district in the upcoming documents to support planning for the budget. And the RTA will be most definitely speaking in support of those needs. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Ms. Baverstock. And of course, a lot of work in the areas that you just mentioned is ongoing and will be factored into the recommendations and what the board's looking at in terms of next year's budget. As we wait for some of the work to happen in terms of consultation, especially on anti-racism working group, there's still a lot of work as presented in the report we just heard as well. That is already ongoing and moving forward, and we're really grateful for that. Okay, moving on.
Chairperson,
Yes.
apologies for
Oh.
interrupting, Chairperson. We do have one other question now from a member of the
course.
public, if I could share that with you. So the
Yes.
question is, what is the budget for hiring the consultant for the Anti-Racism Committee, and where is this money coming from? So what I can say is that the consultant budget actually hasn't been completely finalized. It's somewhat dependent as we learn more about what's coming in through the different proposals and the variety of services that are available and the timeline that those services might be available for. So we're actually finalizing that budget. And the funds would come from existing budgets within the operating budget that are intended to support diversity initiatives. And I believe that is the only remaining question from the public at this time.
Okay, thanks very much. I should have remembered to ask if there were any other questions that I can't see immediately.
No
Okay.
problem.
We're going to move to our standing committee reports. Our first one is Audit Committee with Chair Trustee Sargent.
Sorry, nothing new to report, just our meeting coming up on March 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Education Committee, Trustee Larson.
Thank you. Minutes of the meeting held November 18th, 2020 and January 20th of 2021 are attached for information. And our next meeting will be held on, I almost read February, April 21st at 5 o'clock. Oh,
Thank you very much.
pardon me, the public meeting is not at 5 o'clock. Sorry. The public meeting is at, now I've gone blank, 6.
6 o'clock. We'll make
Yeah.
that change. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Facilities and Building Committee, Trustee Hamaguchi.
Thank you. Minutes of the meeting held November 4th are attached for information. Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, March 3rd at 5 p.m.
Thank you. The Finance and Legal Committee, Trustee Tablatny.
Yes.
You have an item?
Finance and Legal does have a recommendation to the board from the committee. And I'll read that recommendation, that the Board of Education approve the reduction in the appropriation to the local capital fund of $200,000 resulting in the 2021 local capital transfer amount from $4,897,000 to $4,697,500. And further, that the Board of Education approved the 2021 amended budget bylaw by way of 3 readings, and that the board authorizes the chair of the board, superintendent, and secretary treasurer to sign the 2021 amended annual budget bylaw and submit the 2021 amended annual budget bylaw together with the 2021 amended annual budget to the Ministry of Education by February 28th, 2021. And I'd like to call on our Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Ueno, to explain what we're actually proposing here.
Thank you. Through the chair. Each year, the board is required to adopt and approve an annual budget no later than June 30th for the upcoming year. And this annual budget that is approved by our board is based on projected enrollment. It's based on preliminary funding announcements from the Ministry of Education. And it's also based on our best projections in terms of our revenues and expenditures that are contained in our budget. Subsequent to the approval of our annual budget, the Ministry of Education requires boards to submit an amended annual budget. And this amended annual budget is required to be submitted no later than February 28th of each year. The amended annual budget is based on actual student enrollment numbers as at September 30th. And in addition, it's also based on the announced ministry funding that comes to school districts in December. So school districts get an opportunity to essentially amend our annual budget with more accurate information that we have. We also, at this time, through the amended budget process, review all of our revenues and expenditures and update those revenues and expenditures based on now what we have actual expenditures incurred or revenues received for 7 months of the year. In addition, projecting out the remaining 5 months of the fiscal year. And so we have done that work, and the amended budget does reflect all of those adjustments that we have made based on that information that we have received since the annual budget was approved by the board. There are no changes to the amount or level of appropriated accumulated surpluses that the board committed to in the annual budget to balance our budget. So there has been no change in terms of the requirements. We are using the same amount of accumulated surpluses to balance this year's budget. And so that's a little bit of background in terms of what you are approving or recommended to be approving in terms of the amended budget this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ueno. Before we move to seeing if we have consent to do the 3 readings tonight, I want to see if we have any questions. Trustee Goldstein.
Yes, thank you. So it seems to me like we have 2 motions here, one for the transfer of funds and the other is the bylaw. I'm wondering if I could move separately, first of all, the transfer of funds, and then we can move on to the bylaw, if that makes sense.
Trustee Ueno, I'm going to defer to you for some guidance on this and whether that's necessary to have a separate motion around the transfer, the capital transfer.
Through the chair, yeah, this could be done if Trustee Goldstein is requesting an amendment to the original motion that's been presented.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess I saw it as a recommendation, but if it was read as a motion, then certainly this would be an amendment. Yeah.
My understanding was that the recommendation reflected wording in the budget bylaw itself. Is that correct?
Oh, the transfer of funds is part of the budget bylaw. I didn't realize that.
So through the chair, Trustee Goldstein is referring to the recommendation that's contained in the finance and legal report from the chair.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to check with colleagues. If Trustee Goldstein, if you'd like to make that motion, would you like to move the first that under the recommendation? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, to move the transfer of funds. Yeah. As stated.
Actually, point of order, I have moved that, so Trustee Goldstein can second it, and then we can approve that and then go to the 3 readings if that's what's acceptable to trustees.
Yeah, I'd second the motion for the transfer. Yeah.
Okay, I think what I'm hearing is that the full recommendation that was read by Trustee Tablatny, which is approval of the reduction in the appropriation to local capital, and that the board approved the amended budget by way of 3 readings, that would be one motion that she has made by reading that recommendation, and then we'll move to the bylaw itself. So can I get a seconder for that motion then? Is everyone clear on what the motion would be? Trustee Goldstein?
Yeah.
This motion is the 2 pieces under the recommendation in the memo on page 28.
Okay.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. So now I'm going to ask if there is unanimous consent amongst the board that 3 readings of the 2020-2021 annual budget bylaw take place this evening? By unanimous consent, I'm looking for thumbs up, head nods and hands. Perfect. I do not see anyone opposed to that, so I will declare that there is unanimous consent to do the 3 readings. So what I'm going to do is read the amended bylaw, the bylaw amendment, and then ask for a mover and seconder for each time it's read. So first reading, a bylaw of the Board of Education of School District number 38 Richmond, called the board to adopt the amended annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2020-2021 pursuant to section 113 of the School Act. Number 1, the board has complied with the provisions of the act respecting the amended annual budget adopted by this bylaw. Number 2, this bylaw may be cited as School District number 38 Richmond amended annual budget bylaw for fiscal year 2020-2021. Number 3, the attached statement 2 showing the estimated revenue and expense for the 2020-2021 fiscal year and the total budget bylaw amount of $289,636,607 for the 2020-2021 fiscal year was prepared in accordance with the Act. And number 4, statement 2, 4, and schedules 1 to 4 are adopted as the amended annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2020-2021. I have a mover for that. Trustee Larson, seconded Trustee Sargent. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. I'll move to the second reading. And yes, by law, we do need to read this out all 3 times. So thanks everyone for your patience. Second reading, a bylaw of the Board of Education of School District number 38 Richmond, called the board to adopt the amended annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2020-2021 pursuant to section 113 of the School Act. Number 1, the board has complied with the provisions of the act respecting the amended annual budget adopted by this bylaw. Number 2, that this bylaw may be cited as School District number 38 Richmond amended annual budget bylaw for fiscal year 2020-2021. Number 3, the attached statement 2 showing the estimated revenue and expense for the 2020-2021 fiscal year and the total budget bylaw amount of $289,636,607 for the 2020-2021 fiscal year was prepared in accordance with the Act. Number 4, statements 2 and 4 and schedules 1 to 4 are adopted as the amended annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2020-2021. I have a mover for this reading. Trustee Tablatny, seconded by Trustee Hamaguchi. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Maybe I should have asked for others to help me read. Third reading. A third and final reading. A bylaw of the Board of Education of School District number 38 Richmond, called the board to adopt the amended annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2020-2021 pursuant to section 113 of the School Act. Number 1, the board has complied with the provisions of the act respecting the amended annual budget adopted by this bylaw. Number 2, this bylaw may be cited as School District number 38 Richmond amended annual budget bylaw for fiscal year 2020-2021. Number 3, the attached statement 2 showing the estimated revenue and expense for the 2020-2021 fiscal year and the total budget bylaw amount of $289,636,607 for the 2020-2021 fiscal year was prepared in accordance with the Act. Number 4, statements 2 and 4 and schedules 1 to 4 are adopted as the amended annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2020-2021. Have a mover. Trustee Goldstein, seconded by Trustee Larson. All in favor? Any opposed? And that motion is carried. And so the amended annual operating budget bylaw for 2020-2021 is therefore carried. Thank you very much. Trustee Tablatny, anything else you'd like to report from Finance and Legal Committee
Gosh, I just moved the,
besides the minutes being
Yes.
attached here? Yeah.
Sorry. Oh gosh, hold
I
on
think,
one sec. I haven't got it in front of me.
I think there's just minutes of the
Yeah,
January
I'm
20th meeting
just
here.
looking, there's minutes, but I was looking for the
Mhm.
next meeting date and I haven't got it in front of me, so.
Okay. I believe
I am
we've got,
sorry. I think it's
that's
after all this stuff. Hang on one sec. Think I might have it. We go through all the pages of the amended budget. Sorry.
I can give you the date if you like, but
Yeah, approval. Oh, I'm not getting it. Sorry. Go ahead.
it looks just according to our agenda here that the next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April 21st at 11 o'clock.
Yes,
Okay,
it is.
great, thank you. Yeah, it's a
Thank you.
large agenda. Once you lose your
Sorry.
place, it's
Yeah.
can be difficult to come back. Okay, we're going to move to Policy Committee, and Policy Committee is bringing notice of motion. And now that I've gotten you looking all around the agenda, Trustee Tablatny, as Vice Chair, would you be willing to bring
Yes.
this notice of motion? Thank you. And
So-
for trustees' information, that's page, can you remind us what page? Just so we're all on the same page. I think it's 49 of your agenda package. Yeah,
49.
49.
That's where I was and I had to go back. Okay. So we're bringing forward a notice of motion that in accordance with Board Policy 204, creation and revision of policy and regulations. This is a notice of motion that a recommendation will be presented to the March 31st, 2021 public meeting of the Board of Education Richmond to place policy section 700, which is facilities, into the stakeholder review process. And so at our January 18th policy committee meeting, the draft revised policies for 700, 701, 701.2, 701.11, and 701.12, as well as regulation 701R, 701.2R, and 701.11R, and the administrative guidelines 701.12G were presented. And so we, you know, we've received some verbal feedback, and due to our general timeline for stakeholder review, we've agreed that it will follow spring break. So, so this is the notice of motion, I guess, for the March 31st meeting. Just to give everybody a heads up, it's coming back on March 31st at the public meeting.
Right, thank you. Yes. So it's a notice that the motion
Yeah.
will come, and but I think that the proposed draft is attached, so that folks again have a heads up.
Draft is attached, so it's best for trustees and anyone else to look it over once again before it comes back to that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Tablatny. The minutes of the policy meeting held January 18th are also attached for information. And we have a next meeting scheduled for Monday, March the 8th at 10:30. The board has one piece of correspondence on the agenda tonight, and that is a letter received from Ms. Annika Whitcomb. Apologies for any mispronunciation. Dated February 17th, 2021. And this is regarding the transitional learning program and school safety. That letter is attached. And I would just comment that the board has acknowledged and replied to to this letter. And just a reminder to all here tonight that the board will be receiving a staff report and making a decision regarding the transitional learning program at its March 10th special meeting. Moving to board committee and representative reports. We just have one report, which is the council board liaison committee, which met on February the 10th, and I'm looking for my notes on that.
If I may, Sandra.
Yes, Trustee Lee.
Now, I was going to ask two questions of that correspondence. Have we moved on?
Oh, we have, but my apologies. I didn't check to see if there were questions. So with everyone's indulgence, we can move back and you can ask your question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sandra. The question maybe could be answered by our superintendent if he's available. My question come out of the page 82 of our agenda package, and it's item number 6. And my question one, it's the very first 2 lines. It says, currently, an asymptomatic student is still being directed to attend school when a member of the household tests positive. I'd like to know if indeed that is our school policy. That's my first question.
So through the chair, that would not be a school district policy. The decision as to when a person could return to school would be made in accordance with public health guidelines and expectations.
So it would not be our school policy?
No, through the chair, what I'm saying is that is not a school district level policy or decision. That decision would be made in accordance with provincial level health and safety guidelines and orders.
So we have no such school policy?
There is not a policy at the district level that relates to that.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, my second question is the third and fourth line. And it says, let me get to the focus of it. When there is a test positive case or cases in a classroom, families of all students in that class are not necessarily notified, and the teacher is not involved in the contact tracing. I'd like to know, again, is that a fact in our school district? And is that a school policy, or is that in compliance with the policy of PHO or VCH?
Yeah, through the chair. So again, those would not be school or school district level decisions or policies. They would all be made actually by local public health experts in accordance with provincial health orders and guidelines.
And do we know if they are in compliance? What's being described here, does it occur in our school district? Meaning not necessarily all students are notified. Do we know that, or do we not know that?
Just give me one moment, please. So through the chair, to be honest with you, I think it's probably best if I do some more research on that, and then I'm happy to provide you with a response, Trustee Lee. I wouldn't want to give you inaccurate information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Trustee Lee. Any other questions on this item? Okay. Thank you. Then I will go back to just reporting on the last council board meeting, which is, of course, a regular about every 6 weeks meeting between trustee representatives and city council representatives. And just quickly, because of course, we do like to keep good communication and work together on behalf of our community. So a couple of things that were discussed at this last meeting. As I actually mentioned earlier when we were talking about childcare, The city has said that their analysis has identified continued need and high demand for before and after school care. And so our staffs continue to work together to look at how we can address those concerns and that need. Trustees did hear a bit more about the hub cycling education program, which the city has graciously funded and has expanded their funding, so that the hope is that over a 2-year period, all schools over 2 years will have access and all students will have access to this hub cycling education program, which is great news. And the school district also presented to counselors on our newly released strategic plan and education week. And also there was some discussion about the new foundry and the roles and relationships of different organizations, including the district, in relation to the work of foundry. The next meeting of council board, and it's an open meeting. We would just like to remind folks that they're welcome to attend. Is going to be held on Wednesday, April the 14th at 9:30 a.m. And those meetings are taking place over Zoom. We have come to the end of our agenda. We look for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Trustee Larson, seconded trustee Tablatny. Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Great, thank you. Thank you to everyone for your attendance tonight, for sticking with us through some long amended budget readings. And take care, stay well, and we will see you again soon. Have a good evening.